Hey guys, this episode's being recorded for That Others May Live, brought to you by the Constitutional Confederate. So, I wanted to talk to you guys today about teaching. Um, I've got a website I'm working on. Anybody who looks at it or whatnot, bear with me. I don't really know what I'm doing, but it kind of got put together, sort of. Anyway, so yeah, there's that. But I wanted to talk to you guys today about teaching, and I've done some research, got some notes. Yeah, it's kind of unusual for me. I've done this once or twice before, that's it. But I've got three videos I found that I really, really like. All three of them are from TED Talks. I've got one video, a fourth one, um, by a girl who's kind of sort of got her own channel on YouTube that I really don't like. I don't like her. And I'll get more into that and why in a little bit. Um, so the first one that I want to talk to y'all about. This was put on by, the speaker's name is Nick Furman, and he goes by Ranger Nick. He teaches at I believe, a university. But he started out, I think he said he was about 7 years old, and he had 45 minutes that changed his life while he was in school, or changed the direction of his life while he was in school. He talks about there's this guy who worked for one of the animal something or others. And he came in and did a presentation, which lasted about 45 minutes. He had like a buzzard and a snake and a turtle that he was talking to the kids about. And he was just so interested. One of the things that I like about what he had to say, Ranger Nick, is he said that this gentleman did not educate them. He said that this gentleman edutained them. He educated them while entertaining them, which is a very big key thing when it comes to teaching. The more somebody's entertained with it, the more they're going to remember whatever the lesson was. And this is for both younger kids, older kids, as well as adults. Take it from a guy who's been in school since 2012, working on different programs and degrees and things like that. Okay? And he uses animals in his presentation. In this TED Talk, he has a turtle and a snake that he introduces, and he talks about them. Very good discussion. I really enjoyed listening to him, and he's good at what he does. Very encouraging as well. There's things that all teachers and instructors, regardless of subject matter or the age of your kids, can take away. Like I said, now he still does guest presentations at public schools and whatnot when it comes to animals and all that. But he's teaching at a university, and I believe part of his teaching curriculum's biology, but it has to do with animals in general. It might be zoology. I'm not entirely sure. He didn't go into a whole lot of that. And but yes, highly recommend checking out his platform. Well, not platform. I'm sorry. I don't know if he has one, but checking out his TED Talk. Check out his TED Talk. The other one, this one's by a guy. I believe his name is Azul Terronez. Terronez. And the title of his TED Talk is What Makes a Good Teacher Great. And he's got some very good points. He he talks about several different things, but one of the biggest takeaways that I had for his TED Talk was teachers listening to the students. Listen to them. It's how you make your connection, and you know that, and that's how they know that you're interested. Not just in teaching them, but you're interested in them, and you're investing in them, the students, and not just the students as a class in whole. He's talking about investing in them as individuals. Very, very big takeaway. And he gives examples. His TED Talk, I believe, is about 7 minutes. Sorry, 17 minutes. It's about 17 minutes. And so, yeah. Let me jump back to Ranger Nick for a minute. And one of the things that he mentions, and he's absolutely right. One of the things he talks about is the fact that everybody has some degree or form of stage fright, anxiety, whatever. People don't really like getting up and talking in front of a crowd. I'd have to say, in my experience, he's right. As I've mentioned in a few of my other discussions, or both my videos as well as my podcast, is when I was younger, having humongous stage fright. I hated doing presentations and stuff, and it always sounded bad. But one of the things that he's had his students mention, as well as for he himself, was when they were doing like a presentation or something, and they had about an animal. While they were sitting there holding that animal, they didn't have that anxiety. In fact, many of them described it as they felt like the audience was paying more attention to the animal than to themselves. So that allowed them to relax. So, and yeah, I can actually testify to that. We got Abby over here, my service dog. She goes just about everywhere with me. And before the pandemic happened, I used to help out with green zone presentations at the college that I go to. And with those presentations that a lot of our veterans went to or through during orientation or whatnot, she was with me. And answering questions and things like that, having her there actually helped, because even when I was talking, more people were watching her than me, which allows me to feel better. So, and I mean, even when I gave presentations in other classes, I'd have to get up there and give them a presentation. Instead of staying at the desk, she would come up with me. And a lot of people would, even though they were listening to me, they would sit there and watch what she was doing. And how she interacted with me, because she would interact as I was presenting. See, there she goes. She's always looking for squirrels in the backyard. She doesn't normally have her vest on while she's at home, but I just wanted to put it on for this presentation. I had the intentions of using her as part of it. And she's being silly. See? She says it's all right. Just love on me, Dad. I'm right here. Anyway, see, I'm already smiling. My silly girl. She really does take good care of me. All right, I digress. I get distracted with her very easily. I rely on her so much. And I would actually like to do another one of these educational things in relation to service dogs one day. I don't know that if it'll be my next one, but I'll get there. But yeah, so yeah, doing the presentations or lectures with an animal helps. Helps to calm and relax. Now I know you can't do that with every presentation that you give or every lesson that you teach, but it kind of goes into having some kind of a prop or a gimmick or something. Take some of the anxiety off of you as they're focusing on something else, which is or should be related to the presentation that you're giving, the lesson that you're trying to teach. It could be as simple as a map. Say it's something to do with geography or whatnot, or if you're teaching something about another country or culture, if you've got some of their money you can have passed around the room for the kids to look at. Really shouldn't have any kind of concern as far as if they're going to steal it or it's going to disappear because it doesn't have value here. That's just my opinion. But yeah. All right, so let me take a downward swing here and talk about this girl that I don't like. Now, if I remember correctly, the video was supposedly recorded about a year or two ago, so maybe she's changed since then. I don't know. She says she's been teaching for about 7 years. Her name is Amanda Rose. She was 29 at the time. I only know that because she said that in her video. And if you look her up on YouTube, she has her own channel. Like I said, I don't care for her. I really don't think, listening to her video, I really don't think that she's a good teacher. And this video was called 10 Things I Wish I Knew Before I Started Teaching. I've seen some discussions and presentations by other teachers along these lines. And I liked what they had to say. And I agreed with them. This one I don't like. I don't like what she has to say, but I don't really like her either. Because listening to her video sounds like she's all about herself. Me, 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 me. And I'm telling you right now, if she's like that in the classroom, that's probably one of the reasons why she's not doing well in the classroom. Let me tell you about some notes that I took on her video. I had quite a bit, henceforth why I started writing things down. She talks about teachers are actors, or they need to be actors. And they have to act like nothing's wrong, even when something is wrong. Let me tell you right now, I don't agree with that. If something's wrong, then just go ahead and say so. If you've had a bad day, if you've had bad news, just tell your students. Be like, look, I may not be at 100% because I got some bad news or whatnot. I'm a little bit distracted, but we're going to try and get through this together anyway. So on and so forth. The next thing she has to say is to expect the unexpected. I wish I had known this as a teacher because I thought everything would be whatever. Um, that's a failure in life in general. You should always expect the unexpected. You should never walk into any kind of a situation or any kind of a classroom, whether you're there to teach or you're there as a student, and think that everything's going to go according to plan, because it never does. There is always something. Getting behind the wheel of your car and driving never goes exactly according to plan, because there's so many other people out there on the road. Going shopping, same thing. Sometimes one of the items that you're looking for is sold out. Sometimes I think I'm going to be in and out, and I have an issue because somebody wants to raise Cain about me having a service dog with me. So, or somebody else has a problem with whatever, walking on a cane, not wanting to talk to somebody who has 50,000 questions about service dogs, or somebody just doesn't like the fact that I parked in a handicap spot, even though I have a handicap placard. You know, or maybe a train comes through and so you're running behind. Maybe you're having trouble finding something in the store. Just whatever. Expect the unexpected. Apparently, she thought that when she got her teaching certification, she'd walk into the classroom and everything would go according to plan. You're a moron thinking that. And you really have no business trying to teach other people. The next thing she says that she wished she knew before she started teaching was that respect is earned. You don't just walk into the classroom, stand up front, and immediately be given respect. I'm sorry, that's a common sense thing. You should have learned that as a little kid. You don't just show up in life one day and get respected by everybody. Unfortunately, that's not how our society is. Respect should be given, yes, to people of authority, should be given to older people, people of greater knowledge that they're trying to impart on you, yes, but that doesn't mean you're going to get it. And then there's other times where you think somebody's not showing you respect, but in their eyes they are, because that's their culture and how respect is given. So, yeah. Again, this girl's just dumb. Her next complaint is parents. And she talks about how she would much rather avoid the parents of her students. Yeah, you're right. I've definitely got a humongous problem with that one. When it comes to the teaching and instructing of any child, even if it's on the baseball field as a little league coach, you know, teaching is one of those things that should be parents and teachers or coaches or whatever working together as a team. And the fact that you want to avoid the parents of your students is a humongous problem. It's a big issue. And most professional instructors who are there for the kids and are actually caring will tell you that. Even the most difficult parents, they will tell you that you need to at least try. And you shouldn't be trying to avoid them. She also talks about at least for her and where she teaches. Promotion is through degree, not through performance. And she goes on in that little tidbit talking about she never saw herself as really wanting to go into administration or being a teacher leader or whatever. She wanted to spend all of her time in the classroom. You know, there's probably a lot of teachers who viewed themselves that way when they first started. I mean, even today I kind of look at myself that way if I get into the classroom or whatnot, or once I get into the classroom, that's where I want to be. 42 years old. I don't necessarily see myself going into an administrative position, but times change. But she's talking about you have to have a master's degree, you have to have focus in teaching administration or this or that, and you have to go back to school. Maybe that's where it's like where she's at. Maybe times have changed from when I was a kid going through school in the late 90s. But instructors could become a teacher's lead or a team leader, even an administrator, principal of some sort, off of performance. They didn't necessarily have to go back to school. But at the same time, a lot of my teachers and instructors already had a master's degree because they were interested and dedicated. They wanted to learn more. They didn't go back to school because they wanted a new position. They had a master's in whatever because they wanted to further their education and help the students more. If something else came out of it, that's fine. Again, all about herself, which is a real problem. Teachers and educators should not be about themselves. So, I'm going to try and play this for you. Bear with me, because unfortunately while recording, I can't flip my camera around.
It is not given, it's earned. So we've spoken about this in my other video, How I Survived Teaching High School in New York City. So for sure, check that out because I'm going to go into more detail. But just respect is not given, it's earned. That's the one of the biggest things I wish someone would have told me, that you don't just walk into a room and demand authority. A lot about it is prove to me that you're worthy of my time. And so it's not really something that is given, it's earned. You have to show them that you are worth listening to, paying attention to, that you know your stuff. So many times teachers walk into a room and they're not knowledgeable about their content. How can anyone respect you when you're unfamiliar with what you're supposed to be teaching? So you really want to make sure you're on it, know your information. But again, respect is not given, it is for sure earned, at least in my experience with high school students. Number 6, dealing with parents is hard. Put me in a room with a bunch of teenagers and I have no problem. But the minute it's like the interaction with the adult, I feel like my introverted self just automatically takes control. And either one, I want to avoid the conversation with the parents. Sometimes I want to give the student the benefit of the doubt, especially if they're like 17 years old, you're kind of grown. But you'd be surprised how many times parents will not hold their kids responsible, but will blame the teacher for the causes of their students' failure or maybe of the lack of growth. And that's really hard to deal with because I understand, well, I'm not a parent, but I understand that parents want to protect their child and you want to assume the best. And parents know their children the best. But oftentimes it comes as like the teacher is the enemy when we are the friend. Like parents and teachers are a team. We are a team together wanting the success for your child, but sometimes it can feel like the parents are against us and that it's sometimes fearful to communicate with a parent. I've experienced parents.
So yeah, she doesn't like dealing with parents. Now, she does say that they should be a team, and she's right. Parents and teachers should be a team. You gotta listen to the parents. And yes, the parents should know the student better than you. Doesn't mean they do. You do run into parents who really don't care about the kid. One reason or another, whatever. I've seen it. I've heard about it. I know. I'm not blind and I'm not dumb. But, yeah, you still gotta try. You don't want to just the parents. You still gotta try. Open dialogue. Open dialogue. So, Abby Settle. Alright, I'm trying to key up my next video for you if I can find it. But, yeah. She just rubs me the wrong way. She's all about herself. So, I've got an issue with that. Give me a second. Ah. Here we go.
Lots of tables at Thanksgiving. This one, that one, folding one.
Sorry about the ad.
New cooks one, but no table is a Thanksgiving one.
Bear with
Without a
me.
green bean
I'm
casserole
sorry.
made with French's crispy
2,
fried onions.
1,
French's.
and gone. Yay! Alright. So. Trying to cue it up. That'll work when I get to it. Alright, this next one is another TED Talk. Sorry, that's the only negative one I got, which is probably one of the reasons why I picked it apart. This next one I've got for you guys is called Teaching Methods for Inspiring Students of the Future. I really like this one. This is actually a pretty long one. Actually, they're all kind of long for TED Talks, but this one's a little bit longer. This one's given by a guy named Joe Rule. I actually think I think he does this on a regular basis because he looks familiar and his name sounds familiar. Okay, sorry, I'm struggling a little bit. For those who know me, I've got nerve damage. 3/4 of my body, hence worth the cane, as well as a service dog. In this one, he talks about different methods of teaching, and I really like what he has to say. He kind of goes in line with my instructor for the history of Israel. And he talks about there's the 4 C's of teaching that have been accepted or noticed or whatever by the American Teachers Association. But he's turned it into 6. And his first one is choice. This is one that he came up with. And this is one of the reasons why he reminds me of my instructor for the history of Israel. Both of these instructors offer their students choices. Choices in the material, choices in the activities, projects, and so on. Now, Joe Rule admits that this puts more work on him, and it's much more difficult, because he has to put all these things together before he even walks into class on the first day. And when he's going over this with his students and he's explaining this to them, his method, and how they get to choose, he gives them what he calls a menu of subject material, activities, projects, and so on. And they get to choose which ones that they do. They don't have to do all of them. They can, or they can do some of them. He also explains what minimums are required, and so on. And they also get to work on these things when they want to. There's no certain order. And so he talks about in his classroom, he's got approximately 10 different areas. And so you'll find some students that are working by themselves and other students that are working in groups. Sometimes the groups stay the same throughout the year because they're friends or whatnot. Sometimes the groups change according to what an individual student wants to go and work on for that whatever. But my instructor for the history of Israel has done something similar. He has different things that we can do for different point values, such as our readings that he gives us before our discussions and lectures. We can read these, and we get X number of points for writing a 150 to 200 word response, no more than 200 words. And then we also have the option of doing a book report. We can read a book off of a list and then turn in a book report for it. We can get other points for doing presentations, like we look at something that's coming up and we do the research and the reading or whatnot, and we have the option of getting up in the class and teaching it that day instead of him. And then we also get points for meeting with him individually in his office or online through Zoom, as it is right now, and discussing either class material or asking questions or, whatever. And you have a certain number of points that give you a certain grade. But like I said, each of these things is different points. And you're choosing what you do. You're picking the material that's more important to you, but you're also guiding your own learning in the direction of the things that you want to learn, because not all of it's the same. Again, choice in what you do, choice in how much you do, choice in what you do, choose to get out of it. And for Mr. Joe Rule, it's along the same lines. Now, Joe also has another thing that he points out is, and to be perfectly honest, it falls in line with Mr. Azul. They both talk about caring and the students knowing that you care. Azul talks about asking a student how things are going and asking them about their job or other stuff, their extracurricular activities, a sports or a club that they may be part of, and you're forming a connection with them. And it's not a connection to the class per se, but the students realize that you're making a connection with them as an individual, which helps them and benefits them, and it allows them to see how much you care because you want to know what's going on in their life outside of school as well as outside of your classroom. And Joe talks about the same thing. He also mentions the fact that while he's having this part of his discussion, he mentions the fact that for his students, or students in general, he mentions that people may not remember what you've done for them. People may not remember something else, but they will always remember how you made them feel, however that quote goes. And he's right. And that quote's been passed around a lot lately on social media and things. And it's absolutely true. But one of the things he talks about is that his students, they remember when he shows up at their games, if they're an athlete. If they're in an academic competition, debate or something and he's there. He cheers them on and he encourages them when they succeed and things like that. They remember those things. And so I want to try and play this part of his TED Talk for you.
They're sisters. They happen to decide to demonstrate in a very creative way the fact that they each inherited half of their genes from mom and half of their genes from dad. Gotta love them. This method of teaching, for me, I have found, 37 years experience, is not only effective, but it's fun because it allows me to sit down with small groups of students while I'm team teaching with that fleet of 10 computers. It gives me the opportunity to sit down with a group of 2, 3, or 4, or 5 kids and respond to questions that they initiate. It allows me the opportunity to listen to their thinking. And teachers, when you do this, if you do this, the whole situation creates somewhat of a teacher paradox. Because by removing yourself from front and center, you seem to become less important. But paradoxically, in reality, you become more important. Because when working as a guide on the side, you're freed up to use the most powerful teaching techniques I have ever run across in 37 years. They're as old as the hills. It doesn't matter what techniques are used, these two always work. I'm talking about two loves. First, the teacher's love for the subject and passion for the subject. And secondly, the teacher's genuine love for the kids. First, let's talk about the passion. You know what I remember about third grade? I remember Jenny on the bus. I'm not kidding. Third grade. No, the thing I remember most about the classroom in third grade is I remember our teacher every day after lunch would read to us for 10 to 15 minutes. She would read to us Tom Sawyer. What an adventure. Oh, we had black and white TV, we had cartoons on TV, but this was different. It was obvious to us that Miss Hershey loved reading and she was passionate about reading to us. Tom Sawyer, what an adventure. At the end of the 10-minute reading period, I couldn't wait until the next day to find out what would happen to Tom and his friends. I don't know if Miss Hershey realized it or not. I should have written her a letter a long time ago. She inspired me to be a reader. But you see, she wasn't saddled with state-mandated standards and state-mandated high-stakes standardized testing. And so she...
All right, so that brings me to a couple more things. Yeah, they're not last-minute add-ons. These are more things that I wanted to talk about. Okay, so it's more than a couple. Bear with me. I guess I'll have to deal with that later. Can't reach it now. Reading. And installing or instilling a passion for reading is very, very important. And this kind of goes back to parents and teachers working together. I hated reading. I absolutely hated reading when I was younger. Couldn't stand it. I was slow at reading. Actually, I still am pretty slow at reading, but I'm much better than I used to be. My teachers tried hard to get me to read. My mother tried extremely hard to get me interested in reading. I absolutely hated it. I think it was around 8th grade I kind of started getting interested in comic books. So my mom would buy me a couple of comic books every so often. She was so desperate to get me to read, she settled for buying comic books. And then maybe around early high school, it might have even been the summer before, I'm not sure. I've always been a humongous fan of Star Wars. And it was the rebirth of Star Wars. It was coming back out with the books. The first books to be released were by an author by the name of Timothy Zahn. He released the Thrawn trilogy. And she bought me the first one. Just came home from the store one day and handed me this book. And I looked at her and I was like, what the hell? She goes, I just want you to try it. I just want you to try reading this. I loved it. I couldn't get enough. And so she made me a deal. She would buy me the Star Wars books as they came out if I would read them. Financially, she lost that deal because I took off. In fact, in my boxed up book collection of libraries and books, I still have the ones that she bought me. I still have that Thrawn trilogy. What's wrong, Abs? There's a dog walking by that she doesn't care for. There's some that she's okay with. There's others that she absolutely doesn't like. Anyway, just that one thing, that one act by my mother, everybody, and I mean everybody else, had failed. Teachers, instructors, parents of friends, even friends had failed in getting me interested in reading. I hated it. I hated to read. But at that point, my reading took off. And from there, it grew. I started reading things in science. I started reading more about history, all kinds of stuff. Got to the point where I was reading just about anything I can get my hands on. There's a lot of things I was self-taught. Hell, I've taken classes in college. I already knew the material from the entire class because I had read it in my spare time somewhere else. So, trying to find and get your students or your kids interested in reading, the biggest thing I can offer you, because reading is so important, is finding something that they're interested in. Whether it's sci-fi and fantasy like I was as a kid, or it's cars, or airplanes, or animals. And either take them to the library, they can sit down in the library and read the books, they can check them out and take them home, whatever. Give them access to what they want to learn about. And trust me, it'll grow from there. They'll find other things. Mine grew from sci-fi to science and fantasy. The fantasy got me into history. The history got me into sociology. Sociology got me into wanting to learn about government and practical law and civil law, and that got me into political science, and just so on and so on. It's a domino effect. The more they read, the more their interest is gonna branch out and spread. It's like a tree. So here we have choice, encourage reading in whatever their subject of interest is, genuinely caring and taking an interest, forming that individual connection, not just a classroom connection. And feeding their interests and encouraging it. Don't avoid the parents. Talk to the parents and open up with them. Be transparent and be honest with your students if you're in the classroom. If you've had a bad day, if you're not feeling well, just tell them. They should understand. They've had bad days. Just like if you think a student's having a bad day or something, maybe pull them aside and ask if everything's okay. They may not give you a straight up answer. They may say, yeah, it's all right, it's fine. But in the back of their mind, they're still going to be going, somebody cares. And I say that because you don't know what their home life is like. Like talking about the parents or whatnot. Some parents just don't care. They don't belong having kids. They never wanted kids, and it shows. And the kids can tell. So somebody else caring and showing an interest can be the difference for them. The difference in their entire life. All right, I'm going to wrap this up. This one's actually related, like I said in the beginning. This episode's related to That Others May Live. And it's not just about trying to save somebody's life who may be contemplating suicide or encouraging people who are going through a hard time, but improvement. This includes improvement. Improvement of your situation, improvement of your education, improvement of your whatever, your outlook, your positivity. Just all of it. Being there for people. Like, comment, subscribe. I'll try and disperse this and post it as many places as I can. But it's kind of long. It's almost an hour. I'm at 48 minutes already. Know that you guys are cared about. Each and every one individual. Share it. Share it everywhere you can. Click on follow. And so on and so on. Guys, until next time, watch your back.